Understand that you don't have to be better than your opponent 100% of the time. It's a myth. You just have to be better at the right moments. What's up, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the Level Life Podcast. I'm your host, G-Man, and in today's episode, I want to tackle how to properly build a junior tennis player from the ground up, how to make them successful one day in college, regardless of what level, if it's D1, D2, D3, or if they want to further their career after college and go pro one day. I've got four main pillars that I believe will catapult a junior's success, not only on the court, but off the court as well. Let's dive into it. And most important pillar that I want to discuss is mental structure. Mental structure is key. I remember looking back at my junior tennis career, there were a lot of things that I would love to polish up in my mind. Again, when I started at the age of around 7 or 8, I picked up the game very quickly. However, I did not understand how to handle losing. I was always frustrated. I didn't like losing points. I would cry. And there would be times where my dad would pull me off the court because I was not mentally capable of finishing the match. And I deserved it. He knows it. I know it. And the one thing I would change about my mental structure is understanding the fact that I was going to lose points. It didn't matter how good I was. It didn't matter how bad my opponent was or if I thought I was supposed to win. The truth of the matter is that you need a mental structure that allows you to handle losing, whether it's points, matches, in practice play. You got to understand the simple fact, and I said it over and over again in the previous episodes, tennis is a hard sport, and it is the hardest sport in the world. And I looked up this stat from Roger Federer. And obviously everybody knows who that is in the tennis world. I was following Roger Federer since the time around 2003, 2004, to the end of his career. And the stat that I pulled up just recently is that he only won 54% of the points that he played out of the thousands of matches that he played on the ATP Tour. Think about that for a moment. I've seen him beat Hall of Fame champions to oblivion. I've seen this guy really destroy a lot of good players. And he only won 54% of all the points he's played in the matches that he's had on the ATP Tour in his career, which means he lost 46% of those points. Is tennis really about winning every single point or even winning most of the points? No, it's about winning the big points. But how do you do that? You have to have the right mental structure. And Federer solved that code. He figured it out. It wasn't about dominating the entire match. You just have to be good enough. You have to be better than your opponent in the clutch moments. And so this should be a wake-up call to you guys who are playing these matches. Let's say you're struggling against local rivals, or you're trying to get over the hump in terms of your consistency in winning matches. Understand that you don't have to be better than your opponent 100% of the time. It's a myth. You just have to be better at the right moments. But in order to do that, you have to have the right mental structure. What does your mental structure allow you to do? Does it allow you to move on and forget the fact that you lost that point? Or is your mental structure saying that you have to win every point, and if you don't win this match, you're a failure? Really start to think about how you process points, how you win them, how you lose them. They always tell a specific story. Your narrative of how you handle tight situations, especially in the third set, or if it's a third set tiebreaker, is really going to tell you how you handle points from a consistent standpoint. So don't make everything about winning. Don't make everything about losing. You see, even the great Roger Federer only won 54% of the entire points that he played out of all the matches he's ever won. So that means he experienced a lot of losing. We're always going to experience a lot of losing. You saw it even the example of the past Australian Open where Djokovic was facing Sinner. They had an amazing, epic 5-set battle. Sinner won most of the points, and he still lost. Why? Because he wasn't there for the big points. So be mentally engaged and develop a mental structure that says, I'm going to be better than my opponent when it really matters most. The second pillar that I believe will catapult a junior player's destiny is physicality. You want to be a physical beast. And when I look back at my journey, this is what set me apart from a lot of my competitors, especially in the local area when I was competing in South Florida. There were a lot of talented juniors, more so gifted than I was, especially when I started the sport. But one thing that separated me as I grew stronger and bigger towards my middle school years is becoming that physical beast, becoming that physical animal that had better stamina. So when the third set was there, when the third set tiebreaker was there, I knew I was going to be the one on top. And this is an amazing feeling that you want to have. And at the end of the day, when you're winning matches, it's not necessarily going to come down to who has the best technique. It's not going to come down to aesthetics. It's not going to come down to what academy a player is from or where they train. It's about the stamina and do they have enough of it to overcome the willpower that is being fought. Think of a tennis match as a tug of war. That's what it really is. It's a tug of war of stamina. And you want to have better stamina and better physicality when push comes to shove. So what I would recommend to you, for those of you who are a junior player, or if you're a parent listening to this and you have a young junior player, if they are around, let's say 10, 11, 12, 13, really focus on their stamina, whether it's sprints, miles. You can even build up to, let's say, running 1 good mile, then 2 miles, then 3 miles. Now, all of a sudden, you're running those miles consecutively. And then you really get into the gym and start with core, bands, working on arm strength. And then you can tackle light weights around 12, 13. I remember when I was working with my dad because he was a personal trainer for other athletes who played other sports. Plus, he trained me. So we got into the gym when I was around maybe 12, 13. And he made it a goal, right? We weren't going to lift heavy. We still needed to be flexible because with tennis, you got to be able to get out of the corners. You got to have enough flexibility and enough lift to not only hit the ball, but be effective so that you can get back to a certain part of the court very quickly. With that being said, focus on the flexibility, really understanding how to have a good explosive step. That's one thing that I think is a miss for a lot of players today is that you'll see maybe even a good talented junior player, they have good ground strokes, but they might not have the explosiveness to get out of the corners consistently throughout the match. So that's something I would really focus on, especially with movement. Master your movement, master leg strength, do things like lunges. Those are just some natural things that you can do on your own. And again, it doesn't involve lifting a ton of weights. The ideal body that you would want to aim for would be like a Novak Djokovic or Jannik Sinner. And of course, you have some exceptions to the rule, as you've seen on the ATP Tour, like a Carlos Alcaraz. And if you're a true tennis nerd or tennis fan, if you know the name Joe Wilfried Tsonga, both of these guys were built like football players. But again, they still had enough flexibility and they were very explosive out of the corner. So with that being said, if you attack the gym, be careful, be safe. And again, I'm not a personal trainer or fitness guru, but I can tell you if you are going to the gym, make sure that you're doing things properly, that you have light weight, and that you incorporate interval training as well so that you'll develop muscles that will not get tired. Now on to the third pillar, mastering the proper fundamentals. If I had to look back on my junior career, there were certain things that I would love to polish up, which would be my forehand, backhand, serve, some things that I just didn't have a general knowledge of. And again, my dad and I did the best that we could to seek out other pros and what we can do in terms of technique. And it's not to say that I did not have proper technique in most of these areas when it came down to, let's say, maybe a ground stroke, serve, or volley. But there would definitely be some tips that I would want. So, for example, understanding the modern forehand or the modern backhand, how to really set up for that shot properly. Again, You really want to focus on those things because when you look at the game today, it's always evolving. And sure, most of us know how to hold the racket when it comes to the grips. Let's say you're working on the serve, obviously that's going to be a continental grip. If you're working on the forehand, most likely you want to choose a semi-Western grip, nothing more or less than an Eastern grip, because you want to be able to put effective spin on the ball, right? Those are some basic things that you just have to not only know, but hone in. Looking back at my journey, I would have loved to understand what it really took to set up for a proper modern forehand. Again, I got away with raw technique, and I was just using my athleticism a lot of times to get the ball over the net and develop spin. However, you have the opportunity to not only study the game, but understand what really works. And so when we talk about the evolve process, I would say this: if you're going to study a forehand, if you're going to study it back, especially from a pro, then you're going to have to understand the fact that there might be some limitations of what you can do based on what the best players are doing. And what do I mean by that is you might not be able to pull off what, let's say, maybe a Nick Kyrgios is doing, or what a Rafael Nadal or what a Roger Federer is doing with their forehand. But you can master maybe the simple fundamentals of what it takes. For example, they take back with their forehand, where they place their elbow. Those are just some little things and some little nuances that you just have to pay attention to. You can do the same for the backhand, serve, volley, slice. So just pay attention to how the game is evolving, and you got to do it all based on your athleticism. Again, you don't want to be necessarily a copycat of somebody on tour or somebody close to you. Maybe it's your peer. Maybe you see a really good college player that you like, and you might be able to imitate something very close, but you do have to stay true to your identity as an athlete. And that's how you're really going to define how you swing the best, regardless of whether it's a forehand, backhand, serve. You got to understand the proper fundamentals of how to hit it. Don't get me wrong. Don't just go out and do anything. You still need basic fundamentals that are going to allow you to hit effectively. And then at the end of the day, it's all going to be based on your athleticism, and can you get in the right position with your racket position so that you can hit the ball effectively. Number 4, last but not least, becoming the ultimate competitor. You got to be that dog, man. You got to be that dog that says, I'm never going to give up. I'm never going to relinquish an opportunity to get better. And where does that start? In practice. Most juniors miss this because they get all excited about the tournament. They want to win. They want to increase their UTR. But in order to become a great competitor, you got to be willing to compete in everything that you do. And you might not be there yet. You might not be that person that smells blood. I think that's something that you have to learn and develop. I certainly wasn't like that. And of course, at a young age, I loved winning. I loved seeing the fact that I could make my opponent suffer. But at the end of the day, if I had to look back on my journey, I would correct my habits and understanding that I needed to learn how to compete the right way throughout the match. And I couldn't always make it about whether I'm winning, losing points. Am I becoming that ultimate competitor? Am I someone that's willing to go through hell to really win that match? And this is what a lot of the best junior players in the world, the best college players in the world, and the best pro players in the world, they have mastered this, and they continue to master this time and time again because they are willing to adapt to situations that they might not necessarily like. This is, I think, gold for you guys who are listening to this. You got to go through the ringer. You got to suffer. You got to understand that when push comes to shove, you want to have the capability to compete and show your opponent that you are here, that you're beating your chest and saying, I'm not going anywhere. And this is something that attracts a lot of college coaches. It attracts high-level coaches who are recruiting players to their academy. And it's a good pillar to have. It's a good trait to have, because when you have that never say die attitude, you're going to do anything. You're going to do what it takes to win. You're not going to settle for mediocrity. You're not going to settle for just success here and there. And so my big advice to you is become that great competitor. Become that person that people fear. When they see your name in the draw, when they see you roll up in the tournament, right? They roll up with your bag, you roll up with your swagger, right? Not just about what you're wearing or what you have in terms of your equipment. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your ultimate presence on the court that says, I'm never going to give up. I'm never going to say die. I'm going to be here to compete no matter what happens, regardless of whether you win or lose. You want to become that ultimate competitor. You want to look challenges in the face time and time again and say, I'm here to stay and I'm not going anywhere. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the Love of Life podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. It would help the channel greatly. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, please give the pod a like and a follow. I would greatly appreciate it. I love you guys. Stay tuned for the next episode. God bless. G-Man is out.